Alright, just sitting down to read the news. Haven't really seen a lot. I mean, North Korea announced that insane 10,000 ton destroyer last week, but surely there can't be anything else happening this June in the world of crap navies. Oh boy, here we go again. I know we just covered the Admiral Kuznetsov and how terrible Old Smoky is, but I figured we should talk about the Admiral Nakhimov briefly. Since, she's been in refit for almost 3 decades, and she's finally, as of this June, getting around to her final stages of her sea trials, which may be a reason why Old Smoky isn't getting help. But for the Admiral Nakhimov, this isn't just another routine deployment. This is the culmination of a massive multi-billion-dollar modernization that might just result in the ship being sunk soon. So strap in and grab your pelmini for a brief video covering these repairs and refits. Okay, we're not covering the background to this battlecruiser, heavy missile cruiser, whatever you want to call it, but basically, she and her sisters are basically 28,000-ton missile delivery systems. Unlike the North Korean Chohyun-class, you can believe that these ships have a lot of missiles. But going back to 1999, Admiral Nakhimov was quietly towed into the Sevmash shipyard in northern Russia. Back in 1999, nobody could have predicted that it was entering a logistical black hole that would last nearly 3 decades. Originally sidelined for what was supposed to be a standard routine overhaul, the ship instead became a permanent fixture of the shipyard landscape. As the years bled into decades, the ship sat completely idle, absorbing rain, snow, and rust, while a bankrupt Russian economy and a disorganized naval command that repeatedly argued over what to actually do with the massive hull, basically being trapped in a state of indefinite limbo. This can be attributed to a number of factors, including economic ones like I mentioned, as after the fall of the Soviet Union, the Russian economy was what one might call poo-poo, as well as the fact that the Russian industry couldn't really handle repairing the ship as the infrastructure to do so wasn't inside the new Russian Federation. For example, the Admiral Kuznetsov was built in Ukraine, where the only shipyard big enough to build the ship was, and the Russians pretty much stole the ship Grand Theft Auto style. There were talks in the 2000s about work on the ship, but nothing really came of it. The stalemate finally broke in the early 2010s when Moscow signed a massive official contract to completely gut the ship and transform it into what I can only imagine is what Trump wants for his missile battleships. The plan was simple on paper, but absolutely insane in execution. Hollow out the entire interior of the ship, strip out miles of degraded Soviet wiring, remove the obsolete missile tubes, and rebuild the ship from the keel up with cutting-edge tech, well, as cutting-edge as Russian tech is. Work began with the surge of state propaganda. As any good dictator would, Putin took advantage of this new toy like Kim Kim. And the Russian Defense Ministry confidently announced to the world that this newly modernized masterpiece would return to active service by 2018. However, the Russians being ambitious and rubbish, the 2018 deadline came and went, and the ship was nowhere near completion. The deeper shipyard workers dug into the Cold War era hull, the more nightmares they uncovered. Corroded structural frames had to be completely replaced, as well as specialized welding techniques that I can't even begin to understand, and the integration of highly complex modern radar arrays into an old analog superstructure proved to be a design disaster. Year after year, the timeline slipped. The promised rollout moved from 2018 to 2021, then to 2023, and then to 2025, and here we are finally in 2026. Every delay dragged thousands of shipyard workers into a chaotic cycle of troubleshooting, transforming the refit into one of the most notoriously mismanaged projects in modern naval history. As the timeline spiraled out of control, so did the financial cost. The initial budget for the modernization was pegged at around 50 million rubles, but nothing Putin can't afford. As the years dragged on, the total cost ballooned by a staggering 400%, eventually crossing the 200 billion ruble mark, amounting to billions of dollars for a single surface hull. Those are just estimates. Regardless of what you think, Putin was a middle-aged man at some point. And as any middle-aged man knows, you don't talk about the price of your midlife crisis car. You know Uncle Jim's Porsche was way out of his price range, but don't bring that up with the divorce and all that. Anyway, the astronomical financial drain forced the Russian Navy into a brutal game of balancing the budget. To keep feeding the insatiable money pit that was the Admiral Nakhimov, the Kremlin was forced to abandon plans to modernize the active sister ship, the Pyotr Veliki. The refit of one ship effectively starved and killed the operational life of another. But after nearly 3 decades of false starts, broken promises, and billions of dollars spent, the impossible finally happened. This June, the Admiral Nakhimov actually fired up its twin nuclear reactors, untied its moorings, and sailed out into the White Sea under its own power to begin its final navigation speed trials. For the Russian Ministry of Defense, this is a massive propaganda victory. Proof they can still finish a mega project, even if it took a quarter of a century to do so. The ship will eventually be transferred to the Arctic Fleet when it's done. Hey, so the Russian Navy is still crap, but they did a thing. The timing was quite the aura farming moment for the Battlecruiser. Let me know, Gen Alpha kids, if I'm using that right. As Russia's only aircraft carrier, the Admiral Kuznetsov was permanently trapped in its never ending cycle of shipyard fires, crane collapses, and dry dock disasters. The Russian Navy needs a new flagship, and why not use this newish ship of Theseus type thing, the Admiral Nakhimov, which is being explicitly positioned to step into that void and salvage the pride of the heavily battered surface fleet. But as the multi-billion-dollar ship completes its final sea trials, the ultimate question hanging over this decades-long saga remains. Did Russia actually do something ambitious but not rubbish? Or did they spend almost 3 decades building the world's most expensive target? Let me know what you think down below, and if you'd like to see a deep dive into this class or this ship in particular. Thank you all for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, as it'll help the channel to grow. Until next time, my friends, have a great week.